Let's move on to our breakfast menu this morning. So here are 5 talking points that we're going to go through with Cliona. Mickey Harte's use of the GAA. Cliona, this has proved to be a bit of a hot topic. A lot of people are pretty disgusted by the fact that there was a suggestion that this was actually Gaelic voices for a certain thing.
Yeah, that the GAA was under the GAA banner. But typically people got a bit hysterical very quickly for no reason, in my opinion. I think the phrase or the term they used about themselves was GAA athletes for whatever it was. Okay, so I don't have a problem with people, using that banner, because I think it's used all the people. Sports people use their profile all the time for, to espouse causes. I don't think that's a problem. Trevor Hogan's, pro-Palestinian. David Hickey, pro-Cuba. You know what I mean? We've seen it in GAA before. They're not allowed, obviously, affiliate with a political party. But what I didn't particularly like about this was that of this group, I think 3 of them were from Ulster. Right, and this is a law to be enacted and won't affect them personally. But secondly, I thought it was very strange that they came down to Ballyfermot in Dublin to do something and to work with kids and to use their platform there. And I just thought that looked a little bit strange. Why didn't they do it even, across the border in Donegal or wherever, from Tyrone or wherever they were from? Like, it seemed an odd fit.
Yeah. The press release did talk about we and us as the GAA, and the GAA's core values having these things, which was that kind of sense of like, okay, you've got some kind of centralised endorsement, as opposed to when Trevor went as a rugby player, he went as an individual. When David Hickey did that, it was clear that he was doing
an individual
separately from everybody else.
Yeah, I loved it. Actually, it was brilliant.
Not everybody else was kind of holding hands
on the back of his shirt. Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think it does actually speak a lot about the GAA's place in the community. I know somebody who had no interest in sport, Dub, who ended up moved down the country, had kids, got involved in GAA, and with great shock he said to me once, "Oh my God, the GAA is like a socialist, it's like a socialist organisation," and it is. That's it is a community-based organisation. So people who have strong feelings about something that they think is going to affect their community, will use the GAA tag. GAA were smart, came in quickly and said, they don't speak for us, and also remind all the county boards you're not allowed to get involved in any of these things, but as an individual we are. And also we've seen Eamon McGee and people in Donegal have gone out as well, and so I don't have a problem. It's a democracy. People can I don't think why people
I would definitely agree with that.
The polarisation of people even on this whole issue is what is unsatisfactory. People are entitled to say what they want to say.
Absolutely. I would say Eamon McGee never kind of said I'm speaking on behalf of the whole Donegal GAA setup, because obviously he wasn't. I mean, Kieran Cassidy would have had debates on Twitter down through the years as well. So, I think it's going to be interesting to see if there's any response from the GAA community to the fact that it did seem like they were trying to...
But there's no argument. They were trying to use their GAA clout, if you like. You know what I mean?
But as some kind of
collective... That's not illegally.
Some kind of collective megaphone. As opposed to actually, here I am as an individual. Like afterwards they're like, we're only speaking as individuals. But actually, that wasn't the banner.
But the GAA rules don't stop them doing that. They stop them from representing or affiliating themselves with a political party, and that's not what this is doing. So I don't have a problem with that. But I do have a problem with where it was done. And it seems to have been done in a very strange way, because the local GAA club quickly distanced themselves because there was an inference that it was held on their grounds and it wasn't. So when you see people having to say, hold on, this has nothing to do with us. But why pick Ballyfermot? An area, an urban area, an area that has traditionally, has poverty in it. Why pick an area like that? I just thought that was a very, very strange thing to do, and that's what I wouldn't like about it. I thought that was just a bit very odd. Okay, our second point here is Dublin Mayo rivalry renewed. This is about the Lidl. Yeah, the women. Yeah, the National League, the women's football, because there was a series of brilliant women's semi-finals actually in the Lidl National League in a couple of divisions at the weekend. But the really interesting one is that the Division 1 final now is going to be Dublin Mayo. It's going to be a replay of last year's All-Ireland final. And the interesting thing was that Dublin, and a brilliant Nicole Owen goal got Dublin through. They just snuck it from Galway. There was a tweet, I think, from the official, from one of the accounts anyway, saying, it's going to be a Galway Mayo final unless it was that Dublin close. Gets some miracle. And the goal was fantastic. Go online and find the goal. The goal was a cracker. And I think it's interesting as well to see Mayo back in here, because they haven't had Cora all winter, and it looks to me as if they were in the league final 2 years ago, Division 1 league final, and you know, they shot wide after wide after wide against Cork, but now they've really stepped it up. They've got a really good full forward line, Sarah Rowe and the two Kelly sisters. So they're now starting to score, and they're clocking up big scores. And Sinead Cafferty, who was the star, and she has really been a quiet star over the winter. She scored a great goal, and then she saved one off the line and the other one. So it's going to be, and it's great to see that kind of rivalry, to teams coming up in rivalries. That's important.
Yeah,
you need it. Absolutely need that narrative.
There was a concern maybe that once Dublin had got over the line and found how to win an All-Ireland final, that they were going to be as dominant as the men's team, and you would kind of hope that maybe a few setbacks along the way might actually be good for the sport.
And that's what's really healthy. Division 1 and Division 2 as well in women's football at the moment is there's lots of teams able to, you know, just on the verge. Galway got strong again last year and came back into it. And the Division 2 final is going to be a cracker as well. Tipperary, who have, you know, won an All-Ireland intermediate final and just have some great players, they're back into a final. They're into the final against Cavan, who were in the final again last year. So there are teams coming through, and I think that's what's really healthy. Is it's not just Cork anymore. There's loads of teams coming. Yeah,
for sure. Okay, so Club calls for Brexit revote. This is Jurgen Klopp in part of his Donald McRae. Donald. I always mistake Donald and Duncan.
It is Donald, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is Donald. Yeah. Yeah, well, the one line, it's funny, the line that was picked out and used, you know, as the strap on this in online yesterday, and I think in some of the papers today, was that one of his quotes, and if you hear this quote, which is, I have this helping syndrome, I really care about people, I feel pretty much responsibility for everything. You think, what an idiot, you know, for goodness sake, you know, you don't have to go on about that. But then when you read the rest of it in context, it is really interesting. And
I wanted to be a doctor when he was a teenager.
Yeah. And also
didn't get the points.
What's interesting is and even this, you know, I just think as well, even on the abortion referendum, you know, athletes and managers, they're multifaceted people, they're multidimensional people, and I think that's what we want to know their dimensions. You know, we mightn't agree with them always, you know, but it's good to see it. So that's why I thought that interview was very interesting. And he, as I said, he poo-poos the notion that he would run for politics, and in the end he says he's way better paid and he gets a lot longer holidays, basically.
Yeah.
It's a great read.
Even as a football manager who works 7 days a week. But his point about Brexit is really simple. It's that, like, people didn't fully understand exactly what they were voting for, that they had an uncertainty, that they weren't sure about Europe, and that ultimately, together, we have made better decisions than any time there's been divisions in history. That leads to war. And also, he does point out, which everybody still says, which is, why did it just take a simple majority? You know, 51.9% against 48.1% or whatever it was. Why wasn't it 2/3? Something so serious was decided by that tiny GAA Congress doesn't do that.
Exactly. Don't start us in Congress.
So sharing the rugby talents, this is the other story that is obviously doing the rounds at the moment. What should happen, what will happen. There's an interesting headline in the Irish Times at the moment about how Leinster can't force Carbery not to go. It's like as if they kind of have some sense that he wants to go.
There's a double negative there as well.
Even though last week he was doing interviews going, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I mean, he's been injured for most of the year. That's one of the reasons why he's played.
Broken arm, and
so there was two significant injuries really. Every bit from November to the Six Nations was pretty much gone. So, like, what would it be like in a full season? He would play a lot more. That's the thing.
Yeah, and also I suppose one of the interesting things for me is the Ross Byrne thing as well. So Ross Byrne is second, the number 2 for the number 10, and Ross Byrne had a brilliant season. He's kicking is metronomic. He's a big physical guy. His game, I think, has come on a lot in the last year, but he's not in line for Ireland, which is really interesting as well.
And I think he could be at some point. That's the other side.
That's the question.
Maybe he'll benefit from a move, or maybe I don't know. You have to wait and see exactly how far his career is going to go, because he's still very young.
Last Christmas, I remember talking about the strength of Leinster's underage system and what it was producing it. And I remember saying I was on a panel and Jerry Thornley was on it, and I was saying, ideally there would be a loan system like there is in England, where you just literally loan somebody off there if you need them to get experience. And he turned to me and looked at me and he said, there already is. Leinster basically are feeding all the other provinces. So that does exist. That's there, as we've shown from those statistics. It's just who do you not want to go? Yeah. And why do you not want to, and when do they want to go? That's the big question.
Yeah, no, for sure. We can actually have a look. This is John Fogarty yesterday speaking to the assembled media at the Leinster press conference.
We're not in the business of keeping or hoarding players here. We look at the overall group, see how we got game time for that player, and see how we can help them develop. And that's kind of it. If he can't, or if we see that we can't keep a player moving forward, and it happens. We'll then have the discussion with the player or the RFU. That's when that sort of stuff happens. Tyke Byrne is a really good example for us. So last year, we would have sat down as a coaching group and sort of said, Jesus, this is a good player. We haven't got game time for him. We haven't got enough game time for him. But he's a quality player, and that's when the decisions are made. Certainly in here, where we'll look at that situation and say, right, well, it's time for Tyke to go, and that's what he did, and he's done an amazing job, and he's moved on and he's had a great time. But we don't want to be holding players for the sake of holding players. We're here to develop the players.
It's fair enough.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think it's a really good point. And no club or province wants to keep players that aren't moving forward, that aren't developing. You don't want a player to be stagnating, which is a very good point.
And also, they are trying to win the European Cup. It's not like they're trying to, be competitive in these leagues. It's like their aim has to be to maximise the absolute number of big games that they can play to at some point become somehow self-sufficient.
But the key thing is that the IRFU's aim is for Ireland to win the World Cup.
Yeah, so and they're not the same aims, it turns out. Yeah. And everybody, we're all aligned, we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. They aren't.
Slightly different.
So the last one that we want to talk about is brainwashing the kids. This is on the back of a load of interviews with Ian Rush in the newspapers today. You've got an interesting take on the fact that it's going to be a 45, 55, whatever the Aviva Hole sellout.
Liverpool are coming into play. Is it
Liverpool, Napoli?
Napoli, yeah. next to the Scudetto. Yeah, I'm always fascinated by why children follow a Premiership football team and what makes them follow a Premiership football team. And it appears to me that nowadays a lot of it is because their parents follow that football team, and so from the age of 4 and 5 and 6 they're buying them shirts, and they're just they're huge. And I remember stopping in a petrol station last summer when there was one of these big pre-season friendlies on, and it was also a day with, I think it was All-Ireland semi-finals in Croker, and the petrol station was chock-a-block at 11 o'clock in the morning. You queuing up, there was buses, the whole car park was full, one of those big off the motorway ones. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, they're all heading to Dublin, this is incredible. And then I started looking at their jerseys, and they were coming up to a pre-season friendly for a Premiership team, and they were little kiddies wearing these jerseys, and I thought, are they actually fans, or is that just a little bit of brainwashing? Do you know what I mean? Like, at what point do you let your child decide, I'm going to be a Luton fan, or I'm going to be a Burnley fan?
It's how all religions work, though, right?
It absolutely is. It is. It's indoctrination. It's complete and utter brainwashing. And I always, I've always been grateful that my late dad, in our house, he let us all pick a team when we were little, and in a house there was 5 of us, and we all had a different Premiership team. Yeah.
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 But it means you've got to go to 5 different. You can't make everybody happy by going to one game.
We were never going to matches. Sure, we were watching it on TV. This was back in the days before nobody could afford to go to England. Sure.
All right.
Ryanair.
Who did you pick?
I was a Man City fan when I was a kid. Yeah, and we had a Dad was Arsenal, my brother was Derby, my other brother was Everton, and I was Man City.
Okay, it's not a bad spread.
There you go. Yeah.
Not a single United or Liverpool fan amongst you.
Not that I've anything against them, but it is this notion of, your children become obsessed with a football team because you're obsessed with a football team, and buying them the shirts from when they're tiny, and then.
Yeah, a lot of times that happens. Like, it's what baby grow will we get for the baby? Oh, we get football one because of the dad or the ma supports, and it's
That's right.
Yeah, okay.